From the world of AV programming and control with James King, I'm Steve Greenblatt, and this is Ask the Programmer. Hey, James, how are you today? I'm looking forward to a nice chat.
Oh, I'm doing good, Steve. It's always great when we can connect, have a discussion. I'm looking forward to chatting with you as well. How are you doing?
Doing pretty well. We're recording this probably about a month or so out from Infocom, and so I think a lot of people are getting the fever, and probably also starting to feel a little bit of pressure to get some things done. So I would say that I'm in that club. So how about yourself?
I'm in a little both clubs. I'm excited for Infocom. There's gonna be a lot going on. Yeah, as I mentioned the last couple episodes, I'll be speaking. I got three panels going on, but I'll admit, like I started to build up my calendar, and I actually thought I was overbooked and not going to be able to do some, but we cleared that up, got that taken care of. But yeah, it's a lot going on. I'm looking for Infocom and yeah,
It's gonna it's a lot of build up and then it goes really fast. That's always been my experience, and never get to see all the people you want to see and do all the things that you want to do. And so I've learned to be a little bit more disciplined in prioritizing, but I can relate, and looking forward to seeing everybody. That's really one of the big things. And of course, having the discussions and doing business and learning and so forth. So, um, uh, with that said, one of the things that we thought would be good to discuss today was something that would help the AV community and maybe some of the people that are trying to be educated on programming in AV, about the difference between AV control system programming and just general software programming, because it could be quite easy to think that you can just find somebody who knows how to write code, or especially nowadays where there's a lot more access to programming, there's a lot more exposure, there's a lot more students and education around programming. And the there although those type of people, the people that have the background, can very well be successful in AV. One thing that needs to be discussed is how to take their insight and experience and skill set and try to bring them into the AV world, because there is quite a difference about um, AV control system programming and just general software programming. And you know, so one of the things that we can talk about today is just what are those components? What are the main differences, and how to put them into perspective. So, James, when you look at what goes into control system programming, what kind of stands out as making it really unique?
good question, Steve. At least my opinion, what makes AV programming different than general purpose program software development is really the end goal in mind. Um, General software development, you as a programmer, you are developing a application. Well, you just use that term for this, a general term application, and you're casting a wide net. You're trying to appease the masses. Where in AV programming, you are targeting your current client, which might be different than the client that you work with next. Again, our applications, again, I'm going to try to use those words together. So apples and apples, we do try to make our AV applications, similar, that we can make it easier on us, but each project is different where a software developer is like, I am trying to get this as in the hands as many people as possible with the same product, exact same product.
I think that's a product is a good way of putting it because even in our last show when we were talking with Dan Farisi, when we were talking about programming as a service, that kind of came up. I brought it up in terms of saying that if we looked at making control system programming a product, and then that would be an easier way to be able to sell it as a service because but the nature of what we do today is a lot different than a productized offering that can be mass produced, as you mentioned, and also is the requirements are a lot more broad than specific in terms of what happens in AV control system programming.
Yeah, and way I kind of say like a software developer, software development is thinking about it like the Model T. It is something to get out into the masses. You get what you get, or as my son's preschool teacher always said, you get what you get, you don't get upset. Um, Meaning that like, oh, I would like this application to do this. Cool. Throw in our suggestion list. We'll probably see it 5, 10, 20 years down the line if we ever get to it and if we think it's great. They, I feel, have a little more authority and control over what the application does, the product does. Where in AV programming, I think the client derives it more than and again, we do try to make it easier on us by copying and making templates and modules and all that stuff. But it's not just to make it easier on us, not to please the masses.
Yeah,
Where software
I,
development, you're trying to please the masses. How many people can we get in on this product? An AV product is more, okay, it's tailored to this one person, one client, one thing. And don't get me wrong, yes, there are some software developers that are like that, but that's minor. That's not the majority of them. It's the majority is how many people can we get this into?
Yeah, most people don't have software written for them on a small scale. It's usually they're buying into something that's done on a large scale because it's a lot more cost effective. And to your point, you don't get to say that I want these things done a different way or I need this specific feature. Rarely do you get that fulfilled quickly or easily. It's probably going to take some time or it's going to cost a lot of money or it's not even going to get done because that's not the model that the developer or the company that employs the developers follow. Uh, Another thing that I thought of along these lines is that the software development world has pretty much a blank canvas. They could choose what language to write in, they could choose what they want the software to run in. They could kind of set the specifications. They have a lot more latitude in terms of controlling what they're doing versus I think an AV programmer, a lot of in many cases, not all, in many cases has to really work with the design, the equipment, the control processor, the language, the environment that is given to them, and that that requires a lot living within a lot more constraints.
Yeah, that's a good point. And hearing your explanation there, like it makes me think of this with software development is they're not sure what device it's running on. Where AV programming development, you know the equipment it's running on. 'Cause you have to. Like this is how you're controlling it and all that stuff. So you can tailor it to the devices where software development, hey, it could be running on a mobile device, it could be running on Windows, it could be running on Mac, it could be running on Linux. You don't know their environment. It could be a laptop, it could be a desktop, it could be a server, it could be cloud. Like there's so many. So you're just again casting that wide net and hoping that you get as many fish as you can.
Which in that case, the way you explain it, it actually could make it a little bit more challenging for general software because they have to accommodate for many different ways of using the software, especially something that is cloud-based or that's browser-based, that you don't necessarily know the browser you're using, you don't necessarily know the device that you're using it on, the resolution, and so on and so forth, as you mentioned. So there is I would say in that regard might be a little bit more challenging on that end.
More challenging, I do agree, but also a little bit disagree. Because yes, it is a challenge because you don't know what platform they're running it on. But the saying is, and anyone who knows me, I've been saying this from day one, IT has standards, AV doesn't. So there's a lot of those standards, your your ISO, your application layer. This is how every application works in the ISO model. Like it is done. Everyone in IT knows this, and it's a common framework. And this is so you can develop. You got to develop it. You got to test it on all these systems, but at least you have the guidelines and the framework of this is how we can build it because there's standards. This is how things communicate.
Which is certainly a benefit to the larger uh, majority of software development. And another thing that I can think of in that regard is that in normal software development, or I would say normal, let's say in modern software development, the the scope is laid out well in advance and agreed upon, and it really doesn't change, and developers can be focused on writing code that they know has to meet the requirements, and rarely are they going to get sidetracked or get have to accommodate um, requests that are last minute and so on and so forth. Those things are typically planned out. Those things become updates, and those things are rolled out in a planned manner. Versus, I think AV programming tends to have a lot of um, a lot of uh, disruptions, let's say, or interruptions within the software process.
So I agree. When things are done properly, like especially in software development, you do have your whole process of rolling it out. Example is a lot of people use, a repository like GitHub and Bitbucket and all those out there. And those are tools that allow software developers to, especially when you work in a team, no matter what size, any kind of team, allows you to put your code into review. All right. Your peers review it. Then you can, branch it off. And I'll admit, I might be butchered some of this because I'm not as versed in these repositories as I would like, but you can branch it off and you can have your version controls and all that stuff built in so that you can do your development. And okay, we got this, we like it, everything's working in this environment. We move it up into our sandbox, whatever, and then we have a deployment rollout schedule. And then we also have a plan that if it doesn't work, how to roll back to the last stable version. That's all predefined in software development. People need to follow it. We have seen in the past that doesn't always happen. Um, and then bad things can happen when you don't follow those proper guidelines. Where AV, we really don't have it. I know, again, my very limited knowledge in these repository, they're not designed to handle AV code. So to use them to their full benefit with AV code, you don't get the benefits from it currently. That can change as we evolve and move on. I know there are people who are using it very successful. But I think the masses are not using those repositories as and taking full advantage of the features they have, where they actually highlight the changes and all that stuff that very helpful when you're developing code, especially if you're developing on a team.
Yeah, I definitely hear what you're saying, and it's again probably a function of the fact that we live in a bit of a proprietary world, whether we like it or not. It's still, even when working with modern languages, there are still constraints on many of them, and there's still certain requirements that need to be followed. And then there's certain platforms where, as you said, really don't accommodate those repositories. The another thing along those lines is that I tend to tell people that in the software world, you get to have millions of colors, and we get to deal with a box of 16 crayons, so for lack of a better word, we just are a lot of times behind the times, and have to live in under very specific constraints because that's just the way things work in with certain processors, certain platforms, certain products, and um, because of that, it makes what we do special. And there's actually a lot more talent, I would say, involved in having to do more with less and having to be able to learn how to work within those confines. But if you are looking at, you know, normal, I shouldn't use that word again, but typical software development, they would look at us and say that we're, not modern, and we're not really with they probably couldn't understand what it would be like to be in our environment and have to do what we do. So it's, I think, in that regard, there's a big gap.
Oh, yes, definitely a big gap. And I can definitely, I don't know why this keeps coming to the image coming in my head. And I don't have the image to share. I know this is an audio podcast, but I'm sure our listeners are probably very familiar with the memes with the dragon heads, where two of them look like, four of them look like serious, tough, like, and then two of them are like the silly goofing looking, and they kind of get side-eyed looked at. I feel like AV is the goofy ones, and everyone's looking at us side-eye like, come on, be serious here, and you goofing off. Um, because we do things our own way, and we don't have those standards, as I mentioned earlier, to go by. So we are confined and boxed in.
And the last thing I could think of is the fact that we also are dealing with equipment that has a lot less predictable response in some regard there, and it can also vary considerably. That we're not talking to something that is just another application. We're not working in environments that are known per se. We're integrating equipment that may not necessarily be meant to be integrated together or be thought of in that regard. And but that comes down to what we do as being more special in my mind. And you know it does kind of wrap a lot of this up in the fact that what we do is more customized, is maybe more challenging in a lot of regards, but it requires a different talent level and a different specialization.
Percent. Yeah, that's nothing taken away with what we do. We are we do a lot with a little. Um, so yeah, no, I agree. It's like you say, we get 16 crowns. I am shocked that you get 6 Cs. Sometimes I think we only get four, and you got to make them work. Um, and we, you can look at all the cool AV stuff that's going on out there with our limited resources that we have. And then you look at the software development, the modern software development, and I feel that some of them don't even truly understand their users. There's, trust me, I have dealt with many applications where I look at it and go, they have never used this in their life.
Yeah.
Like they don't understand it. Like where I think us AV programmers have a better understanding of our clients and our users and how the system will be used. Are there some bad programmers out there? Yeah, but that's everywhere. But I would say that's not on the applications, it's on how the person programmed. Where I've actually seen applications that like, okay, this had to go through levels of approval and people just accepted it.
Yeah, that's really that's a good I think a good cherry on the top of this of this Sunday in terms of the looking at what we do and saying that what although we may not have the the latitude and the ability to create things that are as um, technically diverse as as software developers that are doing modern programming. What we do, I think, brings a lot more to the table in that regard and has a lot more a lot more reward in knowing that what we do actually addresses a need if we look at it, AV programmers they're they have a lot of challenges to overcome to be able to really produce the products that they do. Well, a good way to probably wrap this one up, and be curious to hear what our audience thinks. It's James and I were kind of thinking this one out as we were going, and but it's not a conversation that I think is uncommon. There's probably a lot of discussions about this, and a lot of either misunderstandings or possibly frustrations. So please let us know what you think. Put some of your ideas out there and let us discuss them in a future episode. And perhaps we'll even have you on to discuss something. James, how can people get in touch with you? How can they continue this conversation and also keep up with some of the things that you're doing?
I always say, if you can keep up with what I'm doing, let me know how you do it because I don't know how I keep up. Again, Google me, you'll find me. I'm out on the social access AV_James King, Blue Sky, on LinkedIn in the LinkedIn community. Ask the programmer. Again, Google me, you'll find me.
And for me, you can reach me at Steve Greenblatt on social media. And my company, Control Concepts, is a supporter of this show. And one of the things that we do is we develop building blocks that help other programmers be more successful in their projects, whether it's integration of products or adding functionality to your systems. Those downloads and those tools can be found at controlconcepts.net. As James said, we have a LinkedIn group and called Ask the Programmer. Please join that. And this is a great forum to have conversations and talk about some of the episodes and also just meet other programmers and get some discussions going. So we encourage you to join and also participate and reach out to us and connect with us as well. If you don't already know, our podcast in the video version is on YouTube, and we have the audio version on your favorite podcast player. So you have multiple ways of listening and seeing us. So please check those out. And as I've been mentioning, we're always looking for new guests and new topics and making sure that we are serving the programmer community. So reach out and let us know what you think and what you want to hear more about. So until next time, this has been Ask the Programmer.